So I just got home from my 8th time going up the mountain to see Machu Picchu. And every single time that I visit Machu Picchu, I'm again reminded as to why it is the most amazing archaeological site on the entire planet. There's no other ancient site, not even the pyramids of Giza, that you can look at it and be so amazed by the ancient architecture and the artistry that you're seeing in front of you, and yet turn around in a full 360-degree view, and you're looking at exactly the same view that those ancient people would have looked at. It's just mind-blowing. There's nothing else in the world quite like it. But, the problem with trying to understand Machu Picchu is that there's no context to it. What I mean by that is like the fortress of Sacsayhuaman. We call that the fortress of Sacsayhuaman. It sits above the city of Cusco. It's got these massive walls. There's a great battle that happens there towards the end of the Inca Empire. But yet we don't actually know that that was a fortress. We have absolutely no idea what the purpose of Sacsayhuaman really was. And many places throughout the Inca realm are exactly like this. This is probably for a few different reasons. One, because the Inca were likely very secretive, even in pre-colonial times. And two, the period of conquest and the disease that sweeps through the American world during the time of conquest decimated everything. It didn't leave much room for Europeans, the few Europeans who were curious, the chroniclers and the conquistadors who were writing down what they're seeing, to be able to learn enough for us 400 years later to know an adequate amount about these people. And the biggest, strangest example of all of these ancient cities that we know of is, of course, Machu Picchu. It's unique for a few specific reasons. Number one, it's out in the Andean Amazon, sitting high atop this massive mountain, and it seems to have been abandoned sometime right at the beginning of the contact period. And for one reason or another, throughout all the Inca people that were tortured by the Spanish to give up information about their realm, it seems that nobody ever mentioned what the real name of Machu Picchu was, where it existed, that it even existed at all, let alone all the things that it was used for. And like I've always said in my videos, I feel like this is probably the biggest indicator to us as to just how important this sacred site was. And so, yet again, I find myself leaving Machu Picchu for the 8th time with even more questions. So as someone who spends a lot of time traveling around the world, cutting through dense jungles and hiking across arid terrain, and filming expeditions in some pretty isolated places, staying on top of my health before and after my expeditions is pretty important. The last thing I want is the day that I'm supposed to leave on an expedition, I realized that there was something important regarding my health that I should have taken care of, but I felt like I didn't have the time to. So for instance, following our expedition to the Gila, I noticed that there was some kind of bump growing on my arm. I did not want to call every single dermatologist office in the entire city and try to find somebody who would work with me on my insurance. Going through all that feels like this massive, unnecessary hurdle that separates you and the betterment of your health. So that's why I'm so happy to partner with ZocDoc, today's video sponsor. So when I'm preparing for an expedition, the last thing that I want to do is call around to a bunch of doctor's offices trying to book an appointment with an office that's going to work with me. ZocDoc makes it easy and quick to find a doctor's office and compare options and book a visit online before I even hit the road. ZocDoc is a free website that helps you find and book doctors online. You can search through more than 150,000 providers across hundreds of specialties and see real patient reviews, compare doctor profiles, and check actual appointment availability before you book. What I like most was being able to see options right away instead of going back and forth and playing phone tag with the office. In many cases, you'll be able to book an appointment within just a few days, and sometimes, like for me, I was able to get an appointment on the same day. It just makes prioritizing your health so easy. Your health is important, and taking the first step is a lot easier than you think. Click the link in my description or on screen, or visit ZocDoc.com/Luke Caverns to get started. I know it may seem small, but just clicking that link is a huge step towards prioritizing your health and finally checking that appointment off your to-do list. Thanks so much to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video and for helping us all take better care of our health. So as someone with an interest in the history of exploration and a little bit of exploration experience under my own belt, one of the things I always think about when I go to an archaeological site is looking around and thinking, okay, well, why this place? Why is this site the one that they decide to settle on, and how was it discovered? Now, I think that the discovery of the site of Machu Picchu itself is actually rather simple. There are more complicated questions that branch off from this, but my imagination is that these early hunters, who knows how many thousands of years ago, are tracking game through the Andean Amazon, and they're following the Urubamba River that cuts between all these mountains. As these hunters say they got their atlatls, bows and arrows, knives, they're tracking, who knows, Peruvian bear, deer, whatever through the forest here. As they're going, they're hearing the rushing of the water to their, I guess it would probably be to their right, as they have the mountain of Machu Picchu to their left and they're going through the area, but they hear running water, trickling water. They look around and they go to find it and they see water spilling off the top of the mountain. This is because there's a spring up at the top of the mountain of Machu Picchu itself, which you don't usually see in photos. Usually you're seeing a photo that's being taken toward Huayna Picchu while they're standing on Machu Picchu. But most likely these hunters found this source of water, and maybe they think that the earth goddess, the earth monster, perhaps where the earth monster is from. We don't really quite understand these early archaic Indians' way of thought, right? But most likely, being the adventurous, courageous people that basically all Native Americans are, they would have wanted to try to find the source of this water. So through this hell of a mountain that it must have been to climb, they climb all the way up the mountain and they find this fresh water spilling out of the top of it. Now, we don't know how long ago that was, but I would bet you, I'd bet my hat on the likelihood that that's how the site of Machu Picchu itself was discovered. When that was, we have no idea. I have heard from archaeologists and guides who work at Machu Picchu every single day that this happened 2,000 years ago. I've even heard that it happened in 2000 BC by people who predated the Inca. They were like local Andean, Amazonian hunters who are nameless to us today. I mean, we don't know anything about these people, but we do find some rock art and cave art up by the spring. Then the archaeological record tells us that sometime around the late 1200s, 1300s, and especially during the 1400s, massive amounts of construction are happening at the top of the ridge of Machu Picchu. But the question here is, why would the Inca want this area? What is it that they're getting out of the Andean Amazon that they would need to construct such a massive fortification on this mountain ridge in such a remote area? What is it that they want from this area? Do they want the terra preta? This super fertile black soil? Are they wanting that? Are Amazonians trying to spill into the Inca Empire? Do they want some kind of resource that we're not really aware of, or we haven't really pinpointed? I mean, we're probably aware of the resource, but maybe we're not aware of the fact that the Inca wanted this so badly. What is the point of building such a massive fortification right here in the Andean Amazon? I heard an explanation this last time that I was here that Machu Picchu is a military fortification meant to be act as a barrier from the Amazon to stop or manage people trying to come up the Urubamba River and then go into the Inca Empire to try to manage that, basically like an immigration office, or maybe it's a fortification. They establish this fort and they basically lay their supremacy over these Andean Amazonian people. Now, the problem with this is that usually military fortifications don't have the most massive megalithic structures at the core of the city. If you're going to have megalithic structures at all, they're going to be the walls of the city. But there's not really anything other than a single gateway that looked like it had a door that could be pulled up that seems to be a fortification for Machu Picchu. That said, I mean, it is naturally fortified on its own. It's basically only possible to enter the ancient city from one entrance as far as we know, although there could have been staircases going up the side of the terracing along the side of the mountain. I'd have to do a deep dive on that, because there may be a giant cliff that separates the two levels of terracing. But there's nothing that makes the city seem like it's especially fortified or walled off. So I don't think that it's a military fortification. And I've seen Inca military fortifications like the city of Vilcabamba or Choque Corral. There's not megalithic architecture there. It's like the city is thrown together, it pops up, and it's that brick and mortar kind of rubble sort of construction that looks like it was quickly put together in the way that you would do with a military fortification, because you don't have all the time in the world. But the thing is about Machu Picchu is it looks like they had all the time in the world to construct it. So there's something not quite right going on there. Now, there are also people who also say that this was a city that was established for astronomical observations and learning, which I agree with. But the problem is that, think about this, the majority of ancient civilizations around the world, other than the Inca Empire, all of the great ancient civilizations are northern hemisphere. This is the only one of the known great ancient civilizations that exist in the southern hemisphere, which means that their astronomy is intrinsically different than ours, and there's not that many experts in southern hemisphere archaeoastronomy. And so every bit of astronomy that's tried to put onto the Inca, that's tried to put onto Machu Picchu, as far as I'm aware, there's something slightly wrong with it. And I don't think it's that they're not astronomers. I think it's that we don't currently fully understand southern hemisphere archaeoastronomy, or at least the astronomy that South Americans were using in the way that they understood the cosmic wheel in the sky above them. And sort of a continuation from this question, I find myself wondering more and more, why was Huayna Picchu used? How was it used? Crossing from the city of Machu Picchu up the mountain ridge to Huayna Picchu is a pretty perilous climb even today. You're going up these muddy staircases, and if you slip, you fall thousands of feet down to your death. There's no telling how many Inca people slipped and fell trying to continue the city of Machu Picchu up the mountaintop of Huayna Picchu. Huayna Picchu, and I know I said it before, is that mountain peak that you always see pictured behind the city. People don't realize it, but the city actually just continues up that mountain peak, and there are temples and buildings and terraces up on top of that peak. But it makes me wonder more and more, what is it used for? You have these terraces that are typically used for farming, but sometimes they're also used for structural support, as they don't want the foundations slipping. Now, are people actually farming up there literally in the sky? Are they growing anything, or is it just for structural support? And what are those buildings up there? Are those shamans? Are those timekeepers? Are those keepers of the seasons? Are those the people who are secluded up at the top of the mountain that are taking the ayahuasca, that are taking, DMT mushrooms, whatever, and they're just tripping and they can see the full 360 horizon around them, and they are deciphering the secrets of the cosmos, the universe, watching the cosmic wheel spinning in the sky above them? Is that peak where all of the power of the Inca Empire came from? Because the more you can understand about your night sky, the more you can understand about your place in the cosmos, the more you're able to calculate the seasons, the more you're able to predict what happens next. All that does is fuel the power of the Inca emperor and give him the ability to have a firm grasp on time itself, which that's something that you and I think like, oh, look, I can look at my phone. It's August 6th or whatever. But that's not actually how that happened in ancient times. You had to fully understand the cosmic wheel above you to be able to calibrate where you are in time. That's just crazy. So is that what Huayna Picchu is used for? Was that the most important place of all of the Inca Empire? Maybe not. But when you're up there, it certainly feels like it could have been. And the next thing I always wonder is, what more can be found at Machu Picchu? There's not currently excavations going on at Machu Picchu. There's not currently excavations going on at a lot of places throughout the Inca realm. They basically just lean on tourism, and they're just, raking in the income from that. And there's very few excavations that are going on. That's not to say there's not research happening, but very few excavations. Now, there have been rumors for forever about tunnels beneath the city of Cusco, but there's also rumors about tunnels beneath the city of Machu Picchu, as most people don't realize it, but 60% of the construction of the city was in the foundation itself. Now, are these just massive aqueducts that are moving beneath the city, or are people actually talking about real tunnels? And I have to admit, there's so many areas of Machu Picchu that are roped off that you can't really get a good look at. I've gotten some sneaky photos of places that are kind of in these little hidden chambers. And as obsessed as Native Americans were with the underworld, with building their sites on top of caves, I don't find it unlikely that the Inca could have established the city of Cusco in an area where there was a cave, and then established the city of Machu Picchu in an area where there's not only a natural water source that they funnel through an aqueduct system to feed the city fresh water. That's still running today, by the way. If you walk through Machu Picchu, those fountains going through the city were built centuries or more ago, and they're still flowing with fresh water today. You can bend down, cup your hands, and drink it, theoretically, although you might get in trouble if you try to do that. And so I don't find it unlikely that there is a tunnel system of some kind beneath the city of Machu Picchu. But how you would access it, well, I guess that's the real mystery. This has been rumors for decades now, but thus far, nobody has actually detected the entrance, although people have claimed that they have, but there's been no definitive proof. And I don't think that Cusco's Ministry of Culture has done a lot to try to find the entrance. But maybe one day it will be found. One of the other things I think is that, these Inca sites are usually within a proximity of each other. And my guess is that not only were they relying on the runner system to be able to deliver messages throughout the Inca Empire, like it said that if the Inca Emperor in Cusco wanted fish from the Pacific coast that night, in the morning when he woke up, he could send out a runner and then have saltwater fish for dinner by that evening. That's how fast the runners could move throughout the Inca Empire. Well, my guess is that they're also sending smoke signals to each other. So one of the things that I would like to do some research on in the future, and maybe even perform an expedition, if that could ever be approved, is to try to survey the mountain ridges around Machu Picchu. And I bet you there are vestiges that sit up at the top of them where you kind of have military lookout towers to protect the city, to send a smoke signal, to give the city just a little bit of an extra time to prepare in case of an invasion or something like that. And my guess is that throughout the Andean Amazon, where you see these valleys moving and there are all these mountain ridges, that somewhere in eyesight or in your line of sight, connecting the entire Inca Empire, they could probably send fire and smoke signals back and forth. So no matter what central part of an Inca site you're standing on, you should be able to see another one somewhere in your line of sight. And then when you're there, you should be able to see another one. And it's this looped system that all works together. That's my hunch based on the research I've done of the locations of all of these Inca sites and the way that they work together and the way that the Inca are so good at picking a spot. Like when we were at the site of Pisac, we were talking about that there are so many beautiful places to, if you wanted to build a house or move to and live in Peru, but all the best ones were already taken by the Inca sometime in the ancient past. Well, that's it for today. Just some of my thoughts and questions that I still have that are still lingering in my mind about Machu Picchu. If you guys have any interesting questions that you might like answered someday about Machu Picchu, leave them in the comment section below. But until then, I'm Luke, and I'll see you next time.